Hey everyone, today is November 15th, 2021. This is a meeting of the SIG Network Policy API subgroup to SIG Network. This is a CNCF certified meeting, so please be nice to everyone and let's have a good meeting today. So just getting started really quick, there was one issue that got assigned to us. I was taking a look at it before I put in the agenda, and I'll share my screen real quick. It looks like it is a more of a Calico question. So I was just going to ask them to reach out to Calico. Basically, a pod is failing if network policy is there. So not really something that we're controlling, more on the CNI side of things. But if you're interested, you can take a look at that. Cool. And I was catching up from last week. I wasn't here. Is there stuff regarding CMP that we need to go over in this meeting? Or are we just working to present to SIGNet in the next SIG Network meeting?
Not in particular. I think last Thursday there was a SIG Network meeting already, and in that specific meeting, they decided that the next occurrence of the meeting, which falls right on Thanksgiving, that occurrence will be canceled. So we won't have a meeting, next Thursday. So we presented the CMP updates roughly, the very condensed version of the updates to the SIG Network, because there are other agenda items that took a lot of time. And then we basically presented that there are 5 major updates we made to the CMP cap, or 5 major areas we wanted some feedback on. I think it was first of all, the cluster network policy naming. Should we rename it to admin network policy, for example? And do we want the priority number to mean a lower priority number to mean higher priority or lower priority? And the struct, the workload selector struct, about how the file open and file close thing. How should we design the workload selector? Should it be the enum, or should it just be the selectors? And I think the other things was is admission control for no same priority between or among CMPs. Is it okay? So those are kind of like the questions we brought up to the SIG Network, and we asked them to provide feedback on the cap, because Tim specifically said that those are really good questions. Those are questions that people needed to think about before jumping to conclusions. So they don't want it to sort of like give an answer to these questions on the spot on the SIG Network meeting, but they said they will review the cap and provide their comments there. But again, this might slip on their minds, so I plan on doing a quick ping on them again sometime this week to remind them to review the latest commit of the CMP cap. And I think that's it. There are not too much useful feedback we did get on the SIG Network meeting, but we're hoping that there are some sort of a new comments from this week or the next regarding the latest updates on cap.
Great, awesome. Thanks for filling me in. Sounds good to me. Is there any burning action items that need to get done? I gave it a quick review today. I didn't see anything major right off the bat.
Yes, so I think AppShack has some minor comments regarding the PR that we merged before the SIG Network, because remember I had a PR that we wanted to merge before the SIG Network meeting on Thursday, and he didn't get a chance to review it yet. I think he has some minor comments on that particular PR, but I think those we can sort of like address it asynchronously. It's not something really major. So
okay,
basically just some nits. So yeah.
Cool. Sounds good to me. I guess then the plan will be to ask for feedback before the next SIG network meeting then, which I guess would be in December. Cool. Okay. That's all I have on the agenda. Do people have questions, concerns, ideas, anything they want to ask? Is the work still ongoing? Or is it barred on CMP for the service selector proposal and the FQDN proposal? Are those Google Docs being worked on? I know Vinay was working on them. He's not here today.
Different ways. So I can give a quick update, Andrew. So I think FQDN, we are working on it. Service selector, I think we remember we said that it's going to be part of network policy v2 because like right now it fail opens. So in order to plug that thing, I think we need network policy v2.
OSS Kubernetes. Okay. Fair enough.
But I think FQDN is like more, I would say, like it's more priority because we don't have the fail open issue there. I mean, because I think like FQDN things will be only referenced as a remote peer. So remote peer, so it doesn't run into fail open issues. So like we can make progress on that without waiting for network policy v2.
I mean, how do you not run into the same issue, right? If someone provides you're saying an FQDN peer, but the CNI doesn't know what that is.
Right. So on the so we have namespace selector and pod selector, right? I mean, like you can, like if I have just namespace selector, and then I don't specify pod selector, it would allow all the pods, right? Is that what the current behavior is?
If you just provide a namespace selector and not pod selector, right?
Right. So I think if we add FQDN, yeah, I think, it might, it might interpret as like opening all the namespace workloads. I think, yeah, I think it would still run into that thing, right?
Mm-hmm. And it depends on. This is like FQDN is kind of a complicated object. We have a implementation of it in OpenShift, and there's a lot of different constraints about how often you update DNS records. Like there's a bunch of questions around that, and if your policy is for some period of time resolving to a wrong IP, like things can get pretty messy. I don't really know of the best way to do it right now, but I guess we'd have to think about it for a little bit. I know Vinay had shared that document he started, that Google Doc, a while ago. I need to go back and look at it.
Right. So I think one more comment about fail open is, since FQDN is not in the target, so you don't apply the policies to pods that should not have been applied. So from that perspective, it's a little bit less severe, right? I mean, because if I because we don't have it in the target, it's only on the remote peer. Even for remote peer, I think we allow more resources than it should have, but only from the same namespace.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think, but again, like your point about thinking, like how we're going to update the records, how we're going to convert the DNS to IP addresses, because I mean, ultimately CNI providers rely on IP addresses, right? So
right.
We need to figure that out. Like, I mean, that itself is a complete, separate topic on itself. Like it requires a lot of thought process, I think, other than dealing with the fail open anything.
It is a signal that it's.
I'm just a little worried too, like with that, with, you know, upstreaming something, upstreaming an FQDN policy without specifying exactly how we expect it to work. And then I feel like we're going to have an upstream feature that's behaves differently across CNIs, which isn't, I think, a great thing, right? It leads to user confusion. And it's a good argument for per CNI specific resources rather than upstreaming such a thing, right? If every CNI has a different behavior for FQDN policy, then you know, what's the point of upstreaming it? Now, if we can figure out some way to standardize behavior across CNIs, I don't know how to do that yet. I have to think about it for sure. Then we might have an argument for it.
Right. Yeah.
Andrew, can you clarify the concern a little bit? Are you concerned that we won't be able to reach a consensus among CNI providers, or that they're just like things that we haven't explicitly called out yet? What's the major concern?
I think you can argue, like, I think you'll be able to reach a consensus among CNI providers that an FQDN policy would be great, right? The problem lies on the other side of it. There's a lot of different ways to implement FQDN, and DNS is a finicky beast in the sense that I don't feel like the behavior is going to be consistent across CNIs for an FQDN.
So your concern is that, so the concern is that even if we provide an explicit specification, it's unlikely CNIs will actually adhere to that?
Well, like, if I may, I wanted to, you know, provide some, you know, quick insight on this, because I actually, before my leave, I actually implemented our flavor of the FQDN policy in Antria. So essentially what we looked at is that we also look at the CDM solution, right, which is open source. And the Calico solution is closed source, so we don't know for sure, you know, how they're handling FQDN policies. But I think that one major problem, you know, regarding the FQDN policies, as Andrew mentioned, that, you know, there might be a lot of different schemes in terms of deciding how long, I guess, a particular DNS record can be held up to. So in our solution, you know, first of all, it depends on, you know, which DNS servers you're talking to. Is this the DNS server configured for a specific pod, or you're just using, you know, the kube API, kube DNS, which is configured in the cluster? Because, you know, in the cluster, you can have different DNS policies for different pods. So if you have a policy applied onto different pods, then if those pods are having different DNS policies, then you have a little bit confusion in terms of which DNS server are you actually looking to in terms of resolving.
Are you tracing all the way down and try to look at the time to live of the actual server that sort of is responsible for the domain and the address that you're looking up, or?
Right now we have it as a configurable option, but right. I don't think we actually made it as I don't know, as specific as, you know, if there are different pods, then we look at each pod's DNS policy and to do different things on those pods. We didn't go that far.
I think on the other side, right, they have something else that can be updated that's out of your control. What sort of things are resolved too? Because or do you build it all the way so that when you get an address, you try to check back? Because I assume that when you have the address in the filter, right, you don't try to map it back to a name by doing a reverse name lookup. That takes too long time.
Yeah, I don't think we do that.
Exactly.
But we do, you know, as you mentioned, you know, we do take into account TTLs for sure. And, you know, our scheme right now is a pretty simple one, is that, you know, when we for a certain record for a certain name, right, if we actually reach the TTL, then we proactively just, you know, query that name again.
I'm just scared when you have things like, you see what HashiCorp have done and so on, when they basically do their service register and the pods go and register themselves. so that you can get systems with really, really high frequency updates on what's in there. I mean, so I don't think it's probably for most of it, because it's probably to reach fairly stable domains, right? Then these FQDNs will work fine. I mean, Google or something like that, they don't change the name resolution very often, but I think there needs to be some recommendations that you do this to very stable name to address
Unfortunately,
resolutions.
they actually do. They have, those, floating IP stuff where if you actually do query on different DNS servers, then usually you get different IPs for example, Google.com or Facebook.
Yeah, that's true.
They're not actually,
and different regions and how the packet gets there.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's kind of my worry is like there's a lot of ways to skin the cat here and on the implementation side of thing, and I think the minute behavior aspects of it are going to be different.
So layer 7 this stuff works perfectly for, right? Because then it's part of the URL.
Right. But
yes, but I feel like most implementations as of now, for example, CDM and I think Entra at least, this is still sort of like an L4 solution, where L3, L4 solution, where the domain name is actually translated to addresses. But if it's actually layer 7, then we don't have the problem, right?
No, exactly. Yeah.
Right, but that's a pretty big sell. It's the same with OpenShift. It is kind of a pseudo.
No, you're saying in layer 7 you don't have the problem, but I do think that in layer 4 this will never be perfect.
Yeah.
The question is really you have two faults. Like one is like when you block, when you don't allow things that should go through, and that's probably more common than the other way around, right? When you will not block things that should be blocked, because that's typically when you have an address that's changed to be used for something else.
Right.
But
so point being, I think that you have two cells here, right? Either sell Signet and us on a, adding pseudo layer 7 support to network policy, or trying to build this into a new object that, has layer 7 support. So with CMP explicitly, we are focusing on east-west traffic. And my future mindset was to have another object that would serve solely to act as a moat around the cluster. So solely focused on north-south traffic rather than having a single policy to handle east-west and north-south. That might be a better place for something like this to live. And then, I don't know, that's just my opinion. But like I said, I'd like to look at the documents Vinay's already put together and think about this some more. But this has been brought up to SIG Network before, and their biggest, this kind of embodies their biggest problem with it. Like they didn't want network policy to be layer 7. So
it shouldn't.
Yeah, so I don't know if those discussions sort of answer your question, Rahul.
I mean, I guess you could describe it as, in one way, as a helper object that will translate these DNS strings into set of addresses, and that it runs with a, if you describe it that you don't have to implement it, that runs with a certain frequency, and it takes the values that it's given at that particular point in time. It's a helper for lace. It's not perfect. But sort of I think the most important thing is to describe the semantics so that there are no surprises. And then if you use it, well, then you have to accept that there are glitches with it.
Right. That was going to be my question. Like, is it maybe what we can do is we can say the open source specification is a pretty like bare bones version, very similar to what you described, which is, it does it. All that open source requires for conformance is, all right, we do a lookup. It's meant to be really for you don't want to type out an IPv6 address and it's not changing, and so it's a helper. But implementation specific stuff can be as sophisticated as CNIs want, right? Like if you want to do TTL or periodic rechecks or whatever the case may be, I guess individual CNIs can be
or
as sophisticated.
you could also be lazy, right? If you do a firewall, if you do a reverse lookup and don't get the positive answer, that you would actually block the flow. I mean, if you have some sort of, you do one check first, and that you let the flow establish, but you run more checks and you would remove it if other checks are not fulfilled. There's all sort of things you can do in sort of the non-standard. But that's also something, I think. Do you know if the CNI2 discussions have started yet? I haven't checked over there. So I do think for the CNI that to sort of have the discussions around the, let's call it the connectivity piece that's sort of set up to connectivity, and the PEP, the policy enforcement point, and the policy decision point, right? Can that be built in there so that you can have different policy decision functions basically working with different CNIs or different connectivity pieces? Because today, I mean, if you look at Palo Alto and so on, they have to do a full CNI implementation. So it's like, why? They're doing firewalls. Why would they have to go in and do yet another Kubernetes CNI? Now they do it as I mean, what do you call them? Chain loaders, right? But they still go in and do stuff, and they have to send all the data up to and stream it up through yet another pod, so that you really do impact the bandwidth. It's quite significantly. I think that's also something we could look at as part of the version 2. So also try to get the CNI to be more firewall friendly. I mean, the lower layers, not layer 7. Because today it's all baked together. And if you want to do one part, you have to do everything. And that doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, I want to think on this a little more too. I posted the working document that's already up from Vinay on the agenda. So that'd be a good place to write notes and think about it some more. We keep coming back to it as well. Like, I think you're still going to run into the problem you will with trying to add anything to network policies. If we could figure out an intelligent, well thought out and agreed upon way to report, like, we don't have hardcore versioning, but if we could figure out a good status or a way to report what our CNI is doing, I think we could get around a lot of these fail open, fail close questions. So again, if anyone has time or the bandwidth or wants to take that on, it's a really muddled and hard one, but I think it would be really important. And I just haven't had a chance to get into it, to be honest. So anyway, are there any other questions? Sorry, Rahul, I know we kind of meandered around your question.
No, I mean, I think this was a perfect discussion. It captured a lot of, what I was thinking about, what I was trying to get clarity on.
Yeah. Cool. Anything else from anyone? Abhishek, I saw you hopped on. We touched on CMP a little bit, but nothing too major, just responding to some comments you had on Yang's PR and just trying to give it a couple more reads, even though I feel like I've read it about 10 times now. That's
I apologize. I didn't get to that PR early, but I left some comments after it was merged. If there's anything that is pending on me, let me know as well.
Will do. Cool. Anything else from anyone?
Could we change the CNP meeting to bi-weekly? Or did we add that in the agenda notes? I'll just copy the link and invite myself.
Yeah, that was on me. I was scheduling that Zoom meeting, and I think my Outlook client is somewhat buggy. So I thought I send the invite to everybody, but I think nobody received it. But the Zoom link is for the sake of the meeting is actually biweekly. So I will try to resend the invite and. So that everyone can have a just click into their calendar. I'll probably do that after this meeting.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I'll just create my own invite on my own calendar so that the time is blocked.
Yeah,
I'm going to use the one that you sent over in Slack, the Zoom link.
Yeah.
And is it bi-weekly starting this week or is it next week? I'm all mixed up.
It will be next week. So I was thinking that maybe we could have it, always aligned to be before the SIG Network meeting on the Thursday, because that way we can go over last minute if we wanted to present to SIG Network. If there's anything we wanted to present to SIG Network, and go over right before the meeting and stuff. But if you guys think we should do on a different week than a SIG Network meeting, that's fine with me too.
Nope, makes sense to me. I'll add it to my calendar.
Yeah, I think a bunch of Google Docs probably have the old Zoom link. Maybe we can just update them to the newer one.
Yeah, sure.
Thanks.
Okay, anything else? Questions, comments, concerns? If not, we'll give everyone 20 minutes back. Still always looking for people to help me with the repo, add stuff. The one issue we had to import all those user stories, the person who was on it, I reached out and said, I think I finished that comment. I was going to reach out and just say, we're going to assign this to someone else if you aren't able to get to it here soon. But otherwise, love to pretty up that repo. So yeah, that's all I have. I hope all of you have a really good rest of the week, and we will see you here soon.
Take care.
Awesome. See y'all. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.